Number 10. Lost Kings of Teotihuacan. The pre-Columbian capital of Teotihuacan was once the largest city in the Americas. Located near modern-day Mexico City, this sprawling urban center existed 1,000 years before the Aztec Empire came to power and resettled its ruins. Curiously, no royal tombs have ever been found here, but experts believe that kings were buried at Teotihuacan. In 2003, archaeologists made some headway in their search for a royal burial when they discovered an ancient tunnel below a pyramid called the Temple of the Plumed Serpent. Altogether, they found around 50,000 artifacts, including objects made from wood and obsidian. The team came one step closer to finding a king's tomb in 2015, when they found large amounts of liquid mercury at the end of the 1,800-year-old tunnel. Lead archaeologist Sergio Gomez told NBC News that he's not sure why the mercury was put there, but that it may represent a river or lake of the underworld. Excavations are ongoing, and over 100,000 artifacts have been uncovered so far, including statues, shells, jewelry, and ceramics. At the end of the 330-foot-long tunnel, at the midpoint beneath the pyramid, there are 3 chambers that have yet to be explored. In addition to thinking there may be a tomb within the complex, Gomez believes that the site was used for initiating new leaders. The tunnel was in use for at least 2 centuries and may have been created to represent the underworld. It's where priests went to carry out rituals and make offerings to their gods. Whether or not any royal burials will be found remains to be seen. Number 9. Shrieking death whistles. The sound of the Aztec shrieking death whistle is arguably one of the most terrifying noises a person can hear. Writing for Discovery, Ruben Westmoss described the whistle as sounding like a screeching zombie, if zombies screeched instead of moaned. But no one has actually ever met a zombie, so who knows what they sound like, right? Anyways, these macabre musical instruments may have had numerous uses, but archaeologists are unsure of what they were. But they do know that the shrieking death whistles were used during human sacrifices. Back in the 90s, researchers in Mexico found the 500-year-old decapitated remains of a sacrificial victim clinging to a death whistle. One of the scientists blew into it and discovered its high-pitched, death-like scream. Music archaeologist Arnd Adja Both told Gizmodo that the different airstreams generated within the structure are what give it its shrill sound. In addition to being used for human sacrifices, Aztec shrieking death whistles may have been used in healing rituals and/or for military purposes. Number 8. Skull Ring. While metal detecting in the Welsh community of Carreghofa, David Balfour encountered a gold ring decorated with a skull made from white enamel with the surrounding inscription Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "Remember that you die." South Wales Central Senior Coroner Graham David Hughes officially classified this spooky jewelry as treasure, a designation that makes them the property of the UK government. Based on its style, shape, and script, the ring was likely crafted between 1550 and 1650, during either the Tudor or early Stuart periods, according to Mark Redknapp of the National Museum Wales, who said in a statement that the rare piece symbolizes the high mortality of the time, as well as the vanity and brevity of life. It likely belonged to an elite member of society. The Memento Mori theme was common in artwork at certain points in history. While these types of artifacts tend to strike us as morbid, they were more or less intended as an optimistic reminder to make the most of one's fragile and short time on Earth, according to ArtNet. The ring was examined along with a trove of other recently discovered, less creepy Welsh artifacts, including 3 hoards of gold and silver coins, gold and silver jewelry, and personal accessories dating back between the 9th and 17th centuries. Number 7. Altamura Man. Sometime between 187,000 and 128,000 years ago, a male Neanderthal fell to the bottom of a 26-foot deep well and died from either hunger or dehydration. His remains were discovered in 1993 inside a karst cave in Puglia, Italy. Known as the Altamura man for the town he was found near, the man's bones had become covered in calcite over the many thousands of years following his death. Because archaeologists believe that removing his remains from the well would kill him, they extracted a bone fragment for analysis and obtained a DNA sample. It is the oldest known Neanderthal DNA ever obtained by experts. In 2016, researchers constructed a highly realistic model of the Neanderthal's face and body. He was short with a large nose, a protruding jawline, and an elongated cranium. While the individual's body was characteristic of other Neanderthals that scientists have found, his head was shaped slightly differently. Paleontologist Giorgio Manzi described the Altamura man as having archaic traits and representing a sort of morphological bridge between Neanderthals and a previous human species called Homo heidelbergensis. This makes sense since he lived during the earlier days of the Neanderthal's existence, which lasted from 200,000 to around 40,000 years ago. Number 6. Skull Tower of Niš. In 1809, Serbian rebels suffered a crushing defeat by the Turks amid a widespread rebellion against the Ottoman Empire called the Serbian Revolution. In what became known as the First Serbian Uprising, the vastly outnumbered Serbs realized that their options for fighting against the Turks were limited. With 36,000 enemy troops at their doorstep, it became clear that their only realistic choices were to surrender or flee. But Commander Stevan Shindielic refused to go down without a fight. In a last-ditch effort to eliminate as many Turks as possible, and as a final show of disrespect toward Turkish General Hurshi Pasha, Shindielic entered a fully stocked ammunition supply room and shot a gunpowder keg. The victors built a tower with the decapitated skulls of 952 Serbian soldiers. Known as the Cele Kula, or the Skull Tower of Niš, the macabre structure is located in modern-day Serbia. General Pasha commissioned it after the battle as a warning to anyone who might be tempted to cross him. He was outraged at Sindielic's behavior and ordered his men to mutilate the Serbian fighters' corpses. The 15-foot-tall, 13-foot-wide structure originally consisted of 56 rows with 17 skulls each. The Serbs finally drove out the Ottomans in 1878. In 1892, the Serbian government built a chapel around the tower. Many families retrieved the skulls of their fallen loved ones. Today, only 59 skulls remain at the site, attracting some 30,000 visitors every year. Number 5. Venetian Vampire. In 2006, archaeologists discovered the remains of a female vampire in a 16th century grave filled with plague victims on the Venetian island of Lazzaretto Nuovo. A brick had been jammed into the woman's jaw, forcing her mouth open. This was an exorcism technique that people practiced on suspected vampires at the time. The skeleton represented the first ever discovery of an alleged human vampire. A few years after being found, a study was conducted to try identifying the woman, why people thought she was a vampire, and what she looked like. The team determined that she was between 61 and 71 years old when she died. Most European women didn't live nearly that long at the time, so the woman's age was shocking. She lived mostly on vegetables and grains, indicating that she was probably from a lower class and likely lived a rather ordinary life. At the time, many people believed in vampires. This notion was partially fueled by a dark fluid that flowed from the nose and mouth of corpses during the decomposition process. When gravediggers reopened mass burials to add the bodies of recently deceased plague sufferers, they may have mistaken this fluid as the blood of vampire victims. Sometimes burial shrouds became soaked in the fluid and sank into the dead bodies' mouths, making it look as though they had chewed on the cloth, and soon enough, the plague was blamed on vampires. To stop the spread of the deadly disease, people wedged objects into the mouths of the dead. Other suspected vampires have been found since then, including one that was unearthed in Poland in 2014. Number 4. Prehistoric Pregnant Burial. A woman died while pregnant with twins around 40,000 years ago in what is now Hungary. She and her unborn babies were cremated and buried in a Bronze Age urn cemetery among hundreds of other graves. As part of an effort to better understand the little understood Vatya culture that the woman was part of, researchers recently examined the burial's contents. It contained noticeably lavish goods, including a golden hairpiece, a bronze neck ring, and 2 bone pins. Inside the urn were the bones of 2 fetuses who perished along with their mother about 30 weeks into her pregnancy. The woman died during her late 20s or early 30s. Based on her luxurious grave goods, she was probably a highly respected member of her community. It was also clear that every effort was taken to ensure that every fragment of the woman and her baby's remains were placed into the urn, unlike the cemetery's other burials, which are far less complete. A tooth and bone analysis revealed that she likely migrated to the regions as a child from the area encompassing the modern-day Czech Republic. Her elite burial suggests that she married a high-ranking member of the Vatya community, only for her life to be tragically cut short. The woman's cause of death is undetermined, but pregnancy or childbirth-related complications are a safe guess. Number 3. Books bound in human skin. A 2014 study found that a book called De Destinée de l'âme, or Destinies of the Soul, was bound in human skin. The researchers determined that the literary work was probably wrapped with the skin of an unidentified female mental patient who died from natural causes. Written by French novelist Arsène Houssaye, the book ended up in the hands of the author's friend, Dr. Ludovic Bolland, during the late 19th century. For reasons we can only guess, Dr. Bolland proceeded to bind it in human skin. This practice, known as anthropodermic bibliophagy, dates at least as far back as the 19th century and maybe even older. The Bristol Record Office in the UK owns another human skin-bound book, which is wrapped with the flesh of 18-year-old John Horwood, the first man to be hanged at Bristol jail. The disturbing work contains details of Horwood's gruesome murder of a woman named Eliza Balsam. Notorious murderer William Burke's skin was used for binding a small brown pocketbook following his execution in 1829. In a disturbing twist, the book's cover is stamped with his death date. There are no pages inside the appalling artifact, which would have been used for storing money and other personal effects. How and why the man's skin came to be used for the pocketbook's manufacture are a mystery to this day. Speaking with the BBC, Emma Black from the Royal College of Surgeons explained that some of Burke's skin went missing during a dissection of his remains. Soon enough, the pocketbook turned up for sale in Edinburgh, Scotland. In 1852, another murderer named George Cudmore's skin was used to cover a copy of the poetical works of John Milton after he was put to death for killing his wife. Public records confirm that Cudmore's body was dissected, but how and why samples of his skin were kept long enough to bind a book are unknown. Number 2. Mass burial of children. While working on a roadway in southeastern Poland in mid-2020, a work crew discovered human bones. Local archaeologists were summoned to the scene, where they found out what they described as a frightening 17th century mass grave containing the remains of at least 119 people, mostly children. The youths were laid to rest with coins in their mouths. This was part of a pre-Christian burial tradition called Obols of the Dead, or Charon's Obol. The coins were placed in the mouths of the dead as a payment to Charon, the mythical ferryman who carried the souls of the newly deceased across a river that separated the land of the living from the land of the dead. The practice lasted well into Christian times, according to archaeologist Katarzyna Oleszek, who spoke with the First News. Some of the coins found at the site date back to the reign of King Sigismund Vasa, who ruled Poland from 1587 to 1632. Other coins, known as Borytynsky, were minted between 1648 and 1668 during the reign of John II Casimir. There are no grave goods, indicating that the people buried at the site came from a poor community. Oleszek pointed out that the cemetery is undoubtedly Catholic in nature, based on the arrangement of the burials and the fact that they are well cared for. Between 70 and 80% of the individuals were children when they died. This may reflect the high child mortality rate at the time. The cemetery's presence confirms long-standing local rumors of a nearby children's graveyard. The team that exhumed the remains announced plans to study and respectfully rebury them. Number 1. Pregnant Mummy. In 2016, a team of archaeologists examined the remains of a deceased pregnant woman found inside a sarcophagus with inscriptions indicating that there was a man inside. They were looking for signs of ancient diseases and causes of Black Death when they realized that the mummy was entirely different from the person their coffin described. Donated to the Warsaw Museum in 1826, the mummy's false identity went unnoticed for nearly 2 centuries. A series of CT scans and X-rays finally alerted the team that they were not dealing with the remains of an ancient priest from Thebes named Hor Jehuti. Measurements of the fetus's head suggest that the 20 to 30-year-old woman was between 6.5 and 7 months pregnant when she died during the 1st century BC. It is the first known example of a mummified mother-to-be with preserved soft tissue, according to lead study author Wojciech Eastman. 4 bundles inside the mummy's abdominal cavity are thought to contain her lungs, liver, stomach, and heart. The organs were extracted, embalmed, and placed back in her body, according to ancient Egyptian burial customs. But the fetus remained in her womb, untouched, leading the team to believe that the culture saw unborn babies as part of their mother, rather than as individuals deserving of their own afterlives. It's unknown why the woman was inside a man's coffin, but these types of mismatches are relatively common and often result from looting and illegal excavations. Damage to the woman's neck indicates that grave robbers yanked valuable amulets off her. Nobody knows what killed her, but her pregnancy may have played a role, as it was common at the time for expectant mothers to die from complications. Thanks for watching. Which one of these discoveries was the creepiest to you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!